It is finally here. It's NBL1 East Christmas. It's the grand final in the men's competition. The Illawarra Hawks taking on the Canberra Gunners. They've been two of the best sides all season long, and now they finally meet in the grand final. There is way too much to talk about, so screw the rest of this intro. Let's get into it. Welcome to 2 Feet in the Paint's grand final preview. Yes, it is finally here, the grand final. Hawks taking on the Gunners. Can't say it's a huge surprise, but the way in which these teams got to the finals was not easy. Had to beat a lot of quality teams to get into the NBL1 East grand final. Let's firstly take a look at the Illawarra Hawks' road to the finals after a 15-5 record season. So impressive. A team that was hyped up a lot in the preseason, especially because of their big signings, but also their signings of quality role players and a new head coach, and they have just lived up to expectations. Making their way through to the first round of the finals, they beat the Comets a convincing 116-76. In that game, Will McDowell-White went off for 23 points. Meanwhile, Todd Blanchfield, the MVP, had a sensational game as well, 15 points and 13 rebounds. Doing a bit of everything, Todd Blanchfield, and that's kind of why he won the MVP, not just for his scoring, but also for his playmaking, his rebounding, and pretty much stuffing the stat sheet night in, night out. In that game against the Comets, they were on fire from three-point land. They sunk 18 threes in the night, and that's kind of what you expect from this Illawarra side. They have so many shooters around the perimeter, from Dent to Mims, Blanchfield, Kobe McDowell-White. There's a lot of players who can stretch the floor for the Illawarra Hawks. Advancing through to the preliminary finals, they faced the Center of Excellence, and this game was a little closer, but still the Illawarra Hawks did manage to triumph. They were in control for the first 3 quarters, almost slipped up there in the fourth, but really watching the highlights, watching the replay, the game was never in doubt. The Hawks always kind of seemed in control of that game. Blanchfield, MVP, again put up a massive performance. 27 points and 15 rebounds, while those players we're talking about from the last game, those perimeter players, Matt Mims and Kobe McDowell-White, both had 19 each, and Kobe McDowell-White specifically had 9 rebounds and 11 assists as well. Carl Leslie also popped off the bench, so huge shout out to Carl Leslie, 19 points off the bench. He's an interesting player, someone hasn't popped up too much this year, but has had NBL1 experience previously with Townsville. Always give Townsville a shout out when we get a chance. But just stepped up in this game to help them beat the Center of Excellence. Capping off a great season to punch their ticket through to the grand final to face the Canberra Gunners. Now to see how the Canberra Gunners did this year and how they ended up in the grand final. They also had a 15-5 record and were one of the premier teams all season long. The Camber Gunners are such a treat to watch, and they're always a difficult matchup no matter who you're playing. They've got so many weapons, and they are possibly the deepest team talent-wise in the competition. So in the qualifying finals, they beat the COE as well. So there you go, 2 teams in the grand final beat COE on their way to the grand final. So they took care of COE 72-88. They showed no mercy in this game, not even giving up a quarter, playing hard-nosed, intense defense on the Center of Excellence. Also killing them on the inside, using that size advantage, shooting 25 of 39 from 2-point range. So they were getting downhill and getting those high percentage shots in and around the ring. James Toohey had 11, Will Mayfield had 19, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, doing it all again, showing why he was second in MVP voting. Will Mayfield's had a sensational season and really should be in the NBL. That's always something we always come back to, but Will Mayfield showing off in this qualifying final. Derek Emalafonwu also stepped up, 19 points for the dynamic guard, 6 rebounds to go along with it. Glenn Morrison doing what he does as usual, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Just Glenn Morrison providing everything in the paint for this Canberra Gunners team. Also, the young gun Cam Pender, 17 points, 13 rebounds off the bench against the young guns of the COE, and Cam Pender was in the top 5 voting for Youth Player of the Year. So just another weapon in the arsenal for this Canberra side that helps them get wins. They advanced through to the next round, beating the Sharks in a thrilling game at Tuggeranong, or Tuggers, I've heard they've been calling it. We'll be hosting the Nationals in a couple of weeks down at Tuggers, but last weekend, Sharks taking on the Canberra Gunners. Canberra had a very good first quarter before starting to drop off severely in the second and third, going down 35 to 58. Pete Herak must have thrown the clipboard at them in that third quarter break, because coming into the fourth quarter, they locked up the Sharkies. Sharkies only got 7 points in that fourth quarter compared to the Canberra Gunners 24. That was enough to grab them a spot in the grand final. Ultimately, grit and defense got the win for the Canberra Gunners to punch their ticket through. They managed to hold the Sharks to 3 of 21 from three-point land, and that is a really good percentage considering the Sharkies' deadly shooters. But on the other end, Canberra Gunners were 11 of 30 from 3, so hitting their shots, creating high percentage shots through that ball movement. Will Mayfield again was impressive, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. James Tui, 17 points. Glenn Morrison, also 17 points. The old firm getting it done. 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks as well for Glenn Morrison, coming up big, the Brindabella Beacon. So with both teams, the Illawarra Hawks and Camber Gunners, into the grand final, let's have a look at last time they met on May 17th. The Hawks got it done on their home court. Battle of two halves, though, the Hawks putting their foot down in the second half, kind of cruising through that first half against the Canberra Gunners. We've seen this all year long with the Illawarra Hawks. When they really need to switch it on, they can, and they can push the tempo and push the pace. And they did in this game. In that game at the Snake Pit, Todd Blanchfield had 25 points, 17 rebounds, 2 assists and 2 blocks, which is just a crazy stat line. He played all 40 minutes as well, Todd Blanchfield, in that game, just showing that he can put the team on his back, and he's fitter, faster, and stronger than ever. Lockie Dent in that game as well had an important 18 points and 6 assists. Lockie Dent, another weapon that this Illawarra Hawks team have, but we'll get into him a little later. Meanwhile, for the Canberra Gunners in that game, Morrison had 20 and 15. Mayfield had 19, 5 and 3. And James Tui had 11, 9 and 3. So not an awful performance by the Canberra Gunners, at least statistically. Overall, the stats were a little, evened up, even with the Canberra Gunners leading in things like field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. But again, the Illawarra Hawks is taking care of business in the fourth quarter. The Gunners would get their revenge, though, as the Hawks came back to play them at Belconnen. Gunners getting the win 93 to 85. And this was a clinical Canberra performance. You can see why they are the toast of the league. Again, the home side in this game took the second half over. But this time was Canberra, being at home at Belconnen, put their foot down in those last 2 quarters, scoring 25 in the third and 28 in the fourth. Ultimately, pulling them ahead of the Illawarra Hawks. It was a great spread. Cam Pender actually led scoring for the Gunners that day, 18, and also had 11 points to go along with that. Derek Emilafon was stepping up, 17 points. Glenn Morrison with 12 and 8. Will Mayfield with 13. James Tui with 12. It's just so difficult to stop 5 players who can get in double figure scoring, as opposed to, 2 players who get 20 plus points a game. So the Canberra Gunners, that's been the key to their success, is their spread of scoring, their spread of talent. And the same applies for the Illawarra Hawks in this game, in the narrow loss at Belconnen. Todd Blanchfield at 21. Lockie Dent had 18, Matt Mims had 10, and CJ Moran, who I'm not too sure is going to be playing in the grand final or not, had 10 points as well. He's been a big part of their success all year. Again, showing that spread and the depth of talent they have. They've got 8 or 9 guys in their lineup who can really pop off coming off the bench and also starting. The depth of talent on both these sides has really been the X factor to why they've both made the grand final, because as the season goes on, there will be injuries, there will be player availability problems, but the teams who are deep typically do quite well in the NBL1 East. It's a game of depth. We've always said this. So let's zero in on the grand final, the key matchups. Of course, we've got to talk about these players. It's Kobe McDowell-White and Todd Blanchfield matching up against Will Mayfield and James Tui. Now, defensively, offensively, this is a high-powered matchup on both sides. The 2s and 3s for both these sides. Todd Blanchfield, of course, the MVP's averaged 26 points and 12 rebounds, which is just astronomical stats. And he's done it game in, game out, as well as playmaking, doing it defensively, shutting down some of the opposition's best players, and just being able to put the team on his back offensively, night in, night out. Todd Blanchfield, a clear MVP, and coming back for 2 more years. But we don't want to be looking too far ahead. He's got the grand final ahead of him, and he's going to have to match up against Will Mayfield, who is the defensive player of the year. So we've got arguably the offensive player of the year, the MVP Blanchfield, going against the defensive player of the year. So will Mayfield be able to lock up Blanchfield? Will they exhaust each other? Will they cancel each other out on the night? Because they're both going to be expending a lot of energy on both ends. But Will Mayfield has averaged 20 points, 8 rebounds and 4 assists this year. He has done it offensively, defensively, and that three-point shot is looking automatic these days. He's got so many different ways to score, and he takes really good care of his body, Will Mayfield. You can see he's putting in the time in the gym, so he can take care of his body, use that strength to get downhill, and also lock up players defensively. We have Kobe McDowell-White, who is in the All-Star 5 this year. So much hype about him coming into this league, and he has delivered, proving himself as an elite defender and also just being able to fill it up statistically as well, Kobe McDowell-White. But with James Tui on him, that's going to be a tough battle. We know James Tui can shoot himself. He's got a great three-point shot, but he is known as an elite defender. He's won Defensive Player of the Year multiple times, James Tui, and he's really going to have his hands full with Kobe McDowell-White. And even sometimes when Tui might switch on to Blanchfield or Mayfield might switch on to Kobe McDowell-White, that battle on the perimeter is going to be so electric throughout the grand final. Great defenders, even better offensive players. It's going to be a key matchup, and whoever can control the perimeter or hope to contain the star players from the other side, I think will go on to win the game. Another big key matchup is Glenn Morrison versus Toby Campbell and Brad Ballinger. The battle of the bigs is going to be tough. Glenn Morrison is just such a quality player. Another selection in the Star 5 this year for Glenn Morrison. He's such a handful in the paint. Really leads this side offensively and defensively, averaging 16 points this year and 8 rebounds to go with it. Glenn Morrison is out and out the best center in the league. So Toby Campbell and Brad Ballinger are going to have their hands full. Toby Campbell is more of a defensive, get in there, do the dirty work kind of big. It can be very strong defensively, so maybe that can counter Morrison a little bit. Whereas Brad Ballinger is more of a versatile kind of stretch four, but also, hey, he's a big body and can get down there in the paint as well and defend, rebound. So Brad Ballinger, multi-skilled, but we'll see if he is used or Toby Campbell is used on Glenn Morrison. An absolute powerhouse is going to be hard to contain. And of course, we know in grand finals, it does get down to the nitty gritty. And if you do have a strong paint presence, getting you those rebounds, getting to the foul line, and getting you high percentage buckets around the ring, that can be the X factor in a grand final. Let's have a look at how this team stack up by the numbers. The Hawks had an incredible year. They were the minor premiers and they led the league in pace of play, which you can see out there. They are an electric team. I remember commentating them at Norths and your eyes struggled to keep up. They just pushed the pace, played such a high tempo offense. They also led the league in effective field goal percentage and 3-point percentage as well. Canberra was second in the league in 3-point percentage, so it goes to show both these sides can fill it up from beyond the arc. The Hawks are also an elite defensive team with players like CJ Moran, Toby Campbell, and Todd Blanchfield being able to get you so many rebounds a game. So they led the league in rebounds per game, assists per game as well, averaging 21 assists per game, whereas Canberra averages the second most assists per game with 19 per game. So both teams who know how to knock down shots, but not just that, find shooters and find people for high percentage buckets. The Hawkies also lead the league in free throw percentage. And finally, they lead the league in points per game as well with 95 points per game on average. Whereas Canberra is second in the league with 91 points per game. So by the stats, these two teams are just neck in neck. Canberra, however, do lead the league in offensive rating, so maybe a little more high-powered offensively there. And Canberra is also second in the league at 2-point percentage. So if Canberra can look for those high percentage shots in the paint, which they have been all year, then maybe that'll be the X factor. Those are just the numbers. Look, you might just want to watch the replays and get things more of a vibe, but at least the stats do indicate that these two teams should be in the grand final. The big key to the game for me, and this actually was reflected in the statistics, those high assist numbers for both sides is going to be the point guards and the playmaking. Now, Canberra do have a lot of depth at the point guard position. Derek Emalafonwu, who have seen pop off several games this season and even been that second, third, even leading the team in scoring in some games, but also doing it with his playmaking as well. He's a strong, powerful point guard who's very quick, can get downhill, absorb the pressure of the defense and look for those kickouts or those cutters. Derek Emalafonwu, a good scorer and a good playmaker, matching up against a player like Lockie Dent, who kind of similar, can really fill things up when he needs to. Lockie Dent has a wealth of experience, not just in Australia, but around the world, and his game is very refined. Lockie Dent is an absolute baller. Played at an elite level for so long, and it shows. Some games he can give you 20 points, 25 points. Other games, he can give you 10, even 15 assists. That's why he is the perfect point guard for this stacked Hawks team. He knows how to unlock an offense and run an offense. So that's why I think that while both these sides are star-studded, it really does come down to the playmakers and the point guards. Of course, Derek and Lockie aren't the only ones who are doing the main ball handling for their teams. I know both these sides will use their wings sometimes to bring the ball up and set up the offense. But also for Canberra, they've got players like Cam Pender and Brooklyn Bruton who can come off the bench or sometimes start and give you good quality minutes at the point guard position. As I said before, both sides lead the league in assists per game. Hawks averaging 21, Canberra averaging 19. So the playmaking and the ball movement, not only has it led to the success for these teams getting into the grand final, but also going to be their key to success in the grand final. This one is almost impossible to pick, the Hawks and the Canberra Gunners. When you look at them head to head, when you look at the stats, when you look at all the matchups, the players, it is a bit of a headache, and that's why there's so much anticipation building for this weekend. These two sides are so evenly matched. But for the league, I reckon this is a great matchup. Some NBL level talent on display in the NBL1 East Grand Final at Penrith. So make sure you get down there or tune in to the games. It's going to be an absolute ripper. Hawks taking on the Gunners. Two teams that own their areas, of course, Wollongong, Illawarra and Canberra. They've got big talent pools and big fan bases from these two sides. So I expect to see the grandstand full at Penrith on Saturday. We'll see you down there. Thank you for tuning in on Spotify or YouTube to 2 Feet in the Paint. We'll catch you next time.